The Longest Day is a 1962 American epic war film, shot in black and white and based on Cornelius Ryan's 1959 nonfiction book of the same name 3, about the D-Day landings at Normandy on June 6, 1944. The film was produced by Darryl F. Zanuck, who paid author Ryan $175,000 for the film rights. 4. The screenplay was by Ryan, with additional material written by Romain Gary, James Jones, David Pursall, and Jack Seddon. It was directed by Ken Annakin, British and French exteriors, Andrew Marton, American exteriors, and Bernhard Wicki, German scenes. The Longest Day features a large international ensemble cast including John Wayne, Kenneth More, Richard Todd, Robert Mitchum, Richard Burton, Steve Forrest, Sean Connery, Henry Fonda, Red Buttons, Peter Lawford, Eddie Albert, Jeffrey Hunter, Stuart Whitman, Tom Tryon, Rod Steiger, Leo Genn, Gert Fröbe, Irina Demick, Bourvil, Kurt Jürgens, George Segal, Robert Wagner, Paul Anka, and Arletty. Many of these actors played roles that were essentially cameo appearances. In addition, several cast members had seen action as servicemen during the war, including Albert, Fonda, Genn, Moore, Steiger, and Todd. Todd was among the first British officers to land in Normandy in Operation Overlord, and he participated in the assault on Pegasus Bridge. The film employed several Axis and Allied military consultants who had been actual participants on D-Day, and many had their roles reenacted in the film. These included Günter Blumentritt, a former German general, James M. Gavin, an American general, Frederick Morgan, Deputy Chief of Staff at SHAEF, John Howard, who led the airborne assault on the Pegasus Bridge, Lord Lovat, who commanded the 1st Special Service Brigade, Philippe Kiefer, who led his men in the assault on Ouistreham, Marie-Pierre Koenig, who commanded the Free French forces in the invasion, Max Pemsel, a German general, Werner Pluskat, the major who was the first German officer to see the invasion fleet, Joseph Pips Priller, the hot-headed pilot, and Lucy Rommel, widow of Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. The film won 2 Academy Awards and was nominated for 3 others. Plot synopsis. Shot in a docudrama style, with captions identifying the different participants, the film opens in the days leading up to D-Day, concentrating on events on both sides of the English Channel. The Allies wait for a break in the poor weather while anticipating the reaction of the Axis forces defending northern France. As Supreme Commander of SHAEF, General Dwight Eisenhower makes the decision to go after reviewing the initial bad weather reports and the reports about the divisions within the German High Command as to where an invasion might happen and what should be their response. Multiple scenes document the early hours of June 6, Allied airborne troops being sent in to take key locations inland, away from the beaches, and the French resistance reaction to the news that the invasion has started. Also chronicled are important events surrounding D-Day, British troops' glider missions to secure Pegasus Bridge, the counterattacks launched by American paratroopers scattered around Sainte-Mère-Église, the infiltration and sabotage work conducted by the French resistance and Sioux agents, and the response by the Wehrmacht to the invasion. Also shown is the uncertainty of German commanders regarding whether this is a feint in preparation for Allied crossings at the Strait of Dover, see Operation Fortitude, where the senior German staff had always assumed that the invasion would begin. Set-piece scenes include the parachute drop into Sainte-Mère-Église, the advance inshore from the Normandy beaches, the U.S. Provisional Ranger Group's assault on the Pointe du Hoc, the attack on Ouistreham by Free French forces, and the strafing of the beaches by 2 lone Luftwaffe pilots. The film concludes with a montage showing various Allied units consolidating their beachheads before they advance inland by crossing France to eventually reach Germany. Release. The film premiered in France on September 25, 1962, followed by the United States on October 4 and 23 for the United Kingdom. Funds from the premieres were donated to the Salk Institute for Biological Studies and the International Rescue Committee. Because Fox was suffering with the financial losses of Cleopatra, the studio intended that The Longest Day should have a wide release to reap quick profits. Zanuck forced them to do a proper roadshow theatrical release, even threatening to sell distribution to Warner Brothers if Fox had refused to do so. The Longest Day eventually became the box office hit Fox needed, with $30.5 million citation needed, in worldwide theatrical rentals on a $7.5 million budget. It was the highest-grossing black and white movie at the time. Zanuck's production company, DFC Productions, received 50% of the profits and by 1964 had received over $5.8 million. There were special release showings of the film in several United States cities. Participants in D-Day were invited to see the film with their fellow soldiers, in Cleveland, Ohio. As one example, this took place at the Hippodrome Theater. Citation needed. Uniquely for British and American-produced World War II films of the time, all French and German characters speak in their own languages, with subtitles running below in English. Another version, which was shot simultaneously, has all the actors speaking their lines in English. This version was used for the film's trailer, as the Germans deliver their lines in English. However, this version saw limited use during the film's initial release. It was used more extensively during the film's late 1960s re-release. The film was re-released in 1969 and opened at number 1 at the U.S. box office with a first-week gross of $501,529. In the first 4 days of its worldwide re-release in 544 theaters, it grossed $2,846,627. Home media. The Longest Day was released on Laserdisc in 1989, its first widescreen and stereo surround home video presentation. A colorized version was released on VHS in 1994, the 50th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. The original monochrome version was subsequently released on DVD on November 6, 2001. In 2008, 20th Century Fox released the film on Blu-ray. Reception. The day after the film opened at the Warner Theater in New York City, Bosley Crowther of the New York Times declared, "The total effect of the picture is that of a huge documentary report, adorned and colored by personal details that are thrilling, amusing, ironic, sad. It is hard to think of a picture, aimed and constructed as this one was, doing any more or any better or leaving one feeling any more exposed to the horror of war as this one does." Variety described it as a solid and stunning war epic that emerges as a sort of grand-scale semi-fictionalized documentary concerning the overall logistics needed for this incredible invasion. Richard L. Coe of The Washington Post called it a tinkling, eye-gripping, fantastic picture that must rank as the screen's most massive battle epic. His only criticism was the lack of perspective in depicting the German belief that the Normandy landings might not have succeeded had Hitler not taken a sleeping pill. The Longest Day should have taken infinitely more care to put this German belief, however strongly held, into proper proportion. Brendan Gill of The New Yorker called the film a tour de force of audiovisual verisimilitude, but confessed that my emotions were hardly ever engaged, and I ended, rather to my embarrassment, by being bored. He went on, "Mr. Zanuck made it all the harder for me to take this mock documentary seriously by stuffing it with innumerable celebrated actors, most of whom make such fugitive appearances that the audience finds itself engaged in a distracting game of instant identification." The monthly film bulletin stated, "The Longest Day is a monument split down the middle by compromise." At its best, what comes across very strongly is the feeling of immense and careful organization that went into the whole D-Day operation, the sheer crippling weight of noise, the simple fact that a lot of people died, and the sense of personal confusion and dismay of soldiers wandering alone through the countryside. But the film is, first and foremost, a spectacle, and therefore it has stars, a multitude of them, often with barely a line to speak, and usually with no real part to play. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 87% based on 23 reviews, with an average score of 7.8.